What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Build a Mind podcast. I'm your host, Trevor, and I'm here with my co-host, Will. Today, we have with us Alex from Heatbit. Heatbit is the creator of a device called the Heatbit Mini. It is an air purifier and a home heater. What's really cool about devices like these, and the reason why we wanted to have Alex on the show today, is because products like this are revolutionizing the home mining space. They're allowing miners at home to no longer have to worry about the cost of electricity to mine. Now, devices like this aren't going to make you rich. They're not going to make you wealthy beyond measure, but you may not have to worry about whether or not the thermostat is turned up a little too high or something along those lines. So we really wanted to get him on here today to talk about his product, talk about his history, and why he wanted to create a device like this. What were the reasons behind this device? So Will, what do you think about that?
I love it, man. Yeah, products like this are super interesting. The ideas have been around for a decade or more for stuff like this. So I'm excited to talk to Alex. Let's go.
Yeah, let's bring him up. Alex, welcome to the Build a Mind podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting.
Absolutely. So real quick, would you just give us a little quick introduction of who you are, why you feel like the Heatbit Mini, why you felt like you needed to build the Heatbit Mini, and what products like yours are doing in the space?
I'll try to be brief. I can talk about this for hours, but I'll try to be brief. So Heatbit, we actually recently renamed it. Now we call it Trio. We'll talk about it later. But essentially, it does three things, right? Heating, mining, and air purification. So we thought Trio would actually be a better name. So the reason we built Trio is primarily was for the energy. It saves a ton of energy, and it makes mining a lot more efficient and a lot more resilient. And later on, the decentralization angle came in as well. We realized that it actually physically decentralizes mining a lot more, and that kind of helps given the current centralization mining around the big firms. I'm Alex. I'm the founder of the company, I'm behind the initial idea to build this, and been pushing this forward for the last few years.
Awesome. I actually saw your product. I saw your product at Bitcoin Energy Summit in Miami a couple of months ago, and I thought it was really cool because I saw a guy walking around with a backpack, and he had this big device, and it looked almost like an Apple product. It was so shiny and looked really neat. So I think it's really, really cool that you've brought a product to market that is not only allowing people to mine Bitcoin and heat their homes, but it also looks really cool. Like, it's a really cool looking product. You guys have done a lot of work to make that happen. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Thank you. A lot of work went into it. If I speak the marketeer's language, it's going to be it's the aviation grade aluminum body. But frankly, pretty much any aluminum is aviation grade, so like that's not that hard. A lot went into design, and it makes things a lot harder and a lot more expensive to produce. Actually, at the same time, a lot of our customers say, "Well, my wife, girlfriend, mother, didn't let me to mine at home before safety and appearance reasons." But now they're like, "Oh, this is cool." Actually, I went to, I don't know, consider me biased, but recently I went into a Dyson store, and I look at that. I'm like, what we do actually looks better. I mean, not even taking into account the mining aspect of it, but feels like, the Heatbits actually look a lot better than Dyson's. So I think our designers have done a great job there.
Oh yeah, for sure. They did a great job. I want to ask, is this the first product that you guys have brought to market, or was there another one before this?
It's the second one. We had a product back in 2022. We started shipping a product that we call Heatbit 1. So that was essentially a proof of concept for us. We sold about 1,000 of those, and we saw that there's good demand, and we really tried to build as good as we could. But it was like the first try, and it was really still based on a used Antminer S9. It looked fairly good, but didn't perform as well as we wanted. We ran into loads and loads of issues with it, and as much as we tried to solve them, I think quite a few of them still stayed. So, but at the same time, we thought, well, there's demand for this. People want this kind of product, so we doubled down on the development and investing in, and our team grew from 5 people to over 20 people when we built the Trio, the latest product that you see in the website right now. And I think now it's a very, very different product that we built. Now we built a custom miner for it. We built tons of other circuit boards that they do all sorts of controls and safety measures, and it's big difference in quality now. So I'm kind of glad with what's coming out now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I've definitely looked at it. I've seen it. I think it's a wonderful product. I got a couple questions. So how much Bitcoin does this actually mine? Let's say I have a residential rate of 12 cents a kilowatt hour. What is this going to mine for me on a daily basis?
So 12 cents is actually not bad. It's below average in the US. So that's pretty good. And that would give you 50 to 70% of your residential rate back. So if you think of it, if you take the purely economic considerations, if you don't need the heat, you shouldn't be mining, right? Because you'd be losing money. Even if you take some of the latest miners, you will barely make any money under the residential rate. So when it really starts to make sense is when you combine it with heating. And if you'd be using that electricity to heat anyway, then your rate for purely mining is kind of zero, because this way mining doesn't actually use any extra energy. And then it starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. I actually have personal experience, not with the Heatbit, but with an S9. You kind of talked about how they're really loud and not very partner friendly or partner approved. I brought my S9 home, and I wasn't going to use it as a heater. That wasn't the thought going through my mind. I just wanted to get into Bitcoin mining. I wanted to play around with it, and the S9 was the easiest machine that I could get to plug into the wall. So I brought it home, and I plugged it in. I set it on the counter, and I had it going full blast because I hadn't learned how to underclock it or anything like that. And my wife walked in the door, and as soon as she did, she looked at me and she said, "Get that thing out of my house now." And so I was like, man, I don't want to stop mining. So how do I figure out how to do this? But what I noticed is it heated my home so well. Like it just radiated heat. And I was like, man, this use case is phenomenal. So I've got this machine that's 109 joules per terahash, and the heat or the electricity that I was paying for to heat my home before wasn't making me any, or wasn't mining Bitcoin. It wasn't doing anything. So being able to implement this device in my home, which it doesn't look nearly as pretty as your device does. Mine's just an S9 sitting on a counter. But it definitely created a use case. And that's kind of what opened my eyes into things like this. So what you guys are doing is just absolutely incredible. Will, do you have anything to say on this? We'll let you speak for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a great product for folks who just want to try out mine at home, maybe with one or a handful of machines. That's what they hope they can be able to do. But like you said, you've got, other cohabitants in your home who may not like that, right? So a product like this is appealing. And we've heard about a lot of different types of mining at home products over the years. I'm thinking all the way back to, papers written and posts on bitcointalk.org written about, you'll have an ASIC in your toaster and stuff like this. And, it's a nice idea, but, then a company like 21.co comes along and they want to make a little Raspberry Pi type form factor thing that's supposed to mine. And it didn't work out. But the interest and the idea has always kind of been around for many years. And finally, we're starting to see kinds of these heat reuse applications come to market. And they are useful to if you're interested in supporting the Bitcoin network, if you're interested in an auxiliary heating source and saving money on your heating gas or electric bill. I know people who heat their garages with it, heat their basements with it. I know people who've heated their hot tubs with it, and heat their greenhouses with it, and things like that, or heat their fishery ponds, And so there's the heat reuse application. I don't know, maybe Alex, you could speak to this. Mining gets criticized for many things, especially like wasting electricity or emitting CO2, and we all know ASICs don't emit CO2, which people may debate whether that's useful or not, or whether that's benign or not, but they do emit a lot of heat, and that can be very useful, right? So you can get this sustainable or reusable elements from the byproducts of mining that certainly are great counter arguments to some of the detractors of Bitcoin mining, but it's just really useful for your home or your business or whatever. So Alex, if you want to just kind of dive into that.
Sure, it kind of makes sense. Actually, if you go to bitcointalk.org and search a little bit, you'll find an interesting post by Satoshi Nakamoto where he talks about this. He basically says, it was back in 2010, he already wrote that mining is probably going to move closer to heating. I'm not quoting, but mining is probably going to move closer to heating because it makes it much cheaper. Essentially, if you use electric heating anyway, and instead of doing it with regular coil, you start doing it with mining, you're not paying the cost of electricity this way. We have to clarify. Some people still get confused and they think, well, there's some energy being used for heating and then some extra energy being used for mining. That's not the case. Any energy that goes into your heater or any energy that goes into your computer actually converts into heat. It's just the energy doesn't just get destroyed, it changes forms. Electric energy turns into heat energy. That's what's happening with a regular heater, that's what's happening with a miner. And if mining doesn't really use any extra energy, then this is really not just economically the most efficient way to mine, but this is the environmentally the most efficient way to mine as well. Think of it, there's been a response of the big mining firms when they got criticized for using too much energy. One of the big responses was, well, but X percent, like 60, 70, 80, whatever percent of energy that we use for big mining is renewable. And that argument is kind of flawed, actually, because to a large extent, if that energy didn't go into mining, it would go to the grid. And then, we would use it and probably it would push out some of the dirtier types of power generation. And the best it gets is when you just don't use any extra energy for mining. And that's exactly the use cases that you talked about. When you heat your greenhouse or when you heat when you need the heat for fishing, for example, growing your fish, or when you do home mining, we all kind of get cold at times. This is the most efficient way of mining. And on top of that actually decentralizes mining law as well. And that's super, super important because you look at the big mining firms, and they represent the biggest share of the hash rate right now, right? There's a few of the mining. The mining is super centralized in many layers. One is the physical centralization, right? All this, we call them sweatshops, for the lack of a better word. The sweatshops of thousands and thousands of miners. There's also other layers of centralization around the mining pools, etc. But that's just a separate issue that we're not specifically tackling here yet. And those can always get problematic. A government doesn't. Once a government doesn't like it, they can shut it down. We've all seen what happened in China in 2021, right? The hash rate went down very, very quickly. That could happen. Censorship could grow quickly, because if the government comes to these miners and says, "Hey, either you just process the transactions that I tell you to process, or I shut you down," then what are they going to do? They're going to follow, and they're going to only process the transaction that they're being told to process. And another area where there's kind of a problem, but it's kind of under the rug right now, is the leverage. A lot of the big miners are highly leveraged. Right, what they do, they kind of sometimes they sell equity to get the money to install the machines. Very often they are in pretty heavy debt, and that is all kind of based on the mining economics, which is based on the price of Bitcoin. So we've seen it in 2022. Bitcoin price goes down, as it does sometimes. Bitcoin price goes down. Some of the mining companies go bankrupt. And then again, what happens to the hash rate and to the security of the network, right? It drops. And hopefully that's not going to happen. But, I wouldn't want to base the security of the Bitcoin network on the hope. I would rather do something about it.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of on that note, we see there's a lot of centralization in a lot of different aspects of Bitcoin mining. You've got centralization of the chip manufacturers, you've got centralization of the ASIC manufacturers, and you have centralization in, 3 or 4 large mining operations. So do you see your product, the Heatbit or the Trio, as helping to decentralize the overall physical aspect of Bitcoin mining? Is that something that we could see happen over time? Is it happening now?
Yeah, definitely. So we don't work on our own chips, though there are a few companies that do that. We're just not at scale to work on our own chips. But there are more and more of the chip designers for the ASICs. Everyone knows Block is working on the ASIC chips. There are actually a few other firms that are not that public about it. So that part is kind of getting better. I think in terms of the mining machines, you see there's quite a lot of centralization around the industrial mining machines. There's one very, very big leader, Bitmain. But then there are other companies that are kind of catching up. And hopefully we'll see more competition in the industrial machines markets. Then there are other applications, on the machines producers. There are home applications. There's companies like us, which are kind of helping with slightly different use case, but also we compete with. We're in the same kind of layer with Bitmain, right? We just serve a different market. And then there is the actual use of those machines, and this is where I think the home mining can make a very, very big difference. The actual use of the machines is very centralized when it comes to industrial mining, right? You have like one warehouse and it's 10,000 miners, 20,000 miners, tens of thousands of miners, which is naturally very, very centralized. But if everyone is mining a little bit, think of how many people have a heater in their home. Take a guess.
I'd say there's probably 8 million Americans who have heaters in their homes.
But mining is not just in America. Take it globally. There's 3-4 billion people who have a heater, right? Even in relatively warm countries like Spain and Greece and Turkey, people use heaters. They don't use them, for a very, very long time, but they still do use them. So this is where mining could be properly decentralized on the physical device level. And then there's more benefits that help. There's more things that are beneficial here. One is the physical decentralization. It's just the more secure thing for the network. 2, this way, mining and as an extension of that kind of Bitcoin in the public eye changes from, this thing that uses so much energy to this thing that helps to pay the bill. It kind of helps, from the PR angle. And 3, it's the most resilient way to mine. Again, Bitcoin price, say tomorrow, Bitcoin price goes down to 10K. All of those big miners, or most of them, are going to have to shut down. Right? It's just uneconomical for them to run. But then if you mine with heating, you still need the heat. You still use the same amount of energy. So you're still going to mine. And the whole security of the Bitcoin network is going to rely on people like you and me who do mining at home.
Are you ready to discover your